She saw the wire and whispered 2 words that saved his life. Stay quiet. What she didn't know, the man returning home was the Vampire King. And he hadn't forgotten the maid who noticed what everyone else missed. Leora had a split second to decide, just like you do right now. Hit subscribe, then comment where you're watching from so I know where my fellow vampire romance readers are hiding. Because what happens next? Nobody in that manor was ready for it. The silver thread appeared at 4:47 a.m., stretched across the servants' entrance like a spider's silk catching first light. Leora noticed it before her brain had time to catch up, 3 years of obsessive routine in Draven Manor kicking in faster than thought. The wire shouldn't exist. Not here. Not ever. Her hand froze on the door handle, the one she'd turned 1,095 times without incident. Her cleaning bucket hit the stone steps, the sound shattering the pre-dawn silence. Brushes scattered across frost-covered cobblestones, and Leora was already moving, her body remembering the coal chute entrance she'd discovered as a child, the one the other servants had forgotten. She dropped through the narrow opening, her maid's uniform snagging on rough stone. The manor swallowed her into its darkness. Inside, silence. Wrong silence. No night guards making rounds, no cook's bread rising in the kitchen, no creak of ancient floorboards settling. Just absence where sound should be. Then she saw them. 3 figures in black moving through the great hall with synchronized precision, installing small devices along the crown molding. Each device pulsed with faint violet light, UV emitters, the kind that turned vampire flesh to ash in seconds. Her hands were shaking. Her mother, no, not her mother, Mrs. Ashwood, the head housekeeper who raised her, had told her about UV weapons once. Only once. Late at night when Leora was 12 and asked too many questions about why Master Draven never appeared in photographs. Some things burn what they were never meant to touch, Mrs. Ashwood had whispered. Remember that, girl. Remember what light can do. Leora had been too young to understand. She understood now. The front door opened with its distinctive 3-part creak, brass hinges, oak settling, marble threshold. Footsteps in the entrance hall, purposeful and familiar. Master Draven's gait, the way he walked like time itself adjusted to accommodate him. He'd come home early. Leora moved without thinking, the way her hands knew which floorboards creaked, which shadows stayed deepest. She intercepted him at the coat closet, stepping directly into his path. His eyes met hers, gray, impossibly calm, ancient in a way that made her stomach drop. Stay quiet, she whispered, close enough to smell night air and expensive cologne and something else underneath. Something cold and eternal. Don't move. He didn't ask questions. Didn't panic. Just watched her with the stillness of someone who'd survived centuries by trusting instinct. Leora grabbed his wrist. God, she was touching him, the master of the house, the Vampire King, and pulled him into the coat closet. The door clicked shut. Darkness pressed against them, heavy wool coats brushing their shoulders. His wrist was cold under her fingers. Not dead cold. Just less warm than human. Like marble that had never known sunlight. Footsteps in the hall. One of the intruders, checking the entrance. Leora held her breath, felt Master Draven doing the same beside her though she knew he didn't need to breathe. Not really. The footsteps passed, receded toward the kitchen. UV bombs, Leora breathed against his ear, barely voiced. Throughout the house. Proximity triggers. His jaw tightened, the only sign of reaction. How many? At least 8. Maybe more. The staff. Haven't arrived yet. I came early. She didn't say why. Didn't mention lying awake thinking about him, about propriety and impossible things and the way he'd thanked her last week for mending his favorite jacket. Silence stretched between them. Then, clever girl. The front door opened again. Male voices, casual and satisfied. Charges are set. He triggers any room, the whole manor goes up. Sunrise is in 90 minutes, plenty of time to clear the perimeter. And if the staff shows up? Acceptable losses. Corvain wants Draven, not complications. But a few dead servants make the message clearer. They left. The door closed. The manor settled into waiting silence, a trap wound tight. Master Draven moved first, pushing open the closet door with careful precision. He scanned the entrance hall with the focused assessment of someone who'd commanded armies. "We need to disable them," Leora finished. "Before the staff arrives. Before sunrise." He looked at her properly then, not as a master looks at a servant, but as a general looks at a soldier who's proven their worth. "This isn't your responsibility. This is my home." Her voice came out fiercer than intended. "These are my people." Something shifted in his expression. Almost approval. Almost warmth. "Then we work together." "But Leora," he caught her hand, the one still trembling slightly. "If something goes wrong, you run. You don't look back. Do you understand?" She understood. She also understood she wouldn't obey. They moved through the manor like ghosts, identifying each device. Master Draven used his preternatural senses to detect the UV signature. Leora used her knowledge of the house's layout to predict placement. They worked in synchronized silence, her humanity and his vampirism complementing each other. The eighth bomb sat in Master Draven's private chambers, the room Leora had cleaned 100 times, but never truly entered while he was present. The device was mounted above the four-poster bed, aimed directly at where he slept. "Personal," he observed quietly. "Someone wanted to watch me burn." Leora climbed onto a chair, reaching for the device. Her fingers brushed its casing, still warm, recently installed. Master Draven steadied the chair with one hand, his other hand hovering near her waist in case she fell. She disabled the trigger mechanism with the same precision she used to polish silver, steady hands, focused attention, care for fragile things. The device went dark. Leora exhaled. "All clear," she said. But Master Draven wasn't looking at the bomb. He was looking at the device's construction, at the maker's mark stamped into its base. His expression went glacial. "This wasn't just assassination," he said softly. "This was capture. These bombs were meant to drive me into a specific room. A trap, not an execution." Footsteps on the gravel drive outside. The staff arriving for morning duties. Cook's cheerful humming carried through the kitchen window. Master Draven looked at Leora, and she saw something she'd never seen before: uncertainty. Vulnerability. Fear, not for himself, but for everyone else. "Someone in this house let them in," he said. Leora's heart stuttered. Her family. Her friends. The people who'd raised her, taught her, given her the only belonging she'd ever known. One of them was a traitor. "I need you to help me find out who," Master Draven said. "Not a command. A request. I need someone I can trust. Someone who sees what others miss." He offered his hand, pale, elegant, steady. Leora took it. They stood in his private chambers as dawn light threatened the horizon, servant and master, human and vampire, both knowing everything had changed. That the trap in the manor was just the beginning. That some games were played for centuries, not hours. Outside, Cook called for Leora to help with breakfast. Normal routines, normal morning. But Leora saw the chrome kettle on Master Draven's nightstand, polished to a mirror shine. She saw herself in it. Saw the rumpled bed behind her, the window with its heavy curtains. She didn't see Master Draven, though he stood right beside her. Just empty space where a person should be. A void in the shape of a man. Her breath caught. He watched her notice, watched understanding dawn. That smile again, cold, knowing, ancient. "Smart girl," he said quietly. "Most people never look." A knock at the door. Mrs. Ashwood's voice. "Master Draven? Is everything all right?" "Leora." Leora looked at the woman who'd raised her. Who'd taught her which rooms to avoid at midday, which curtains to keep drawn, which questions never to ask. Who'd maybe, possibly, let assassins into their home. "Everything's fine," Master Draven called, his voice perfectly smooth. "Leora was helping me with an early morning matter." Mrs. Ashwood's pause lasted 3 heartbeats too long. "Of course, Master. Breakfast will be ready shortly." Footsteps retreating. "Too careful." Too measured. Leora met Master Draven's eyes. He nodded slightly. Her. Leora's phone, tucked in her apron pocket, buzzed. Unknown number. Against every instinct, she checked it. Message, Leora Vale. Clever of you to notice the wire. Someone wants to meet you. Check your quarters before evening service. And Leora, be careful who you protect. Some monsters aren't worth the loyalty. The message deleted itself. Master Draven read her expression. What is it? Someone's watching us. Her voice sounded distant. Someone who knows my full name. His expression went very still. Vale. It's just a name. Common enough. No. He stepped closer, intensity radiating from him. Leora, the Vale family were legendary vampire hunters. The bloodline was supposed to be extinct. The manor settled around them. Somewhere below, servants prepared breakfast. Mrs. Ashwood gave orders in her crisp, familiar voice. Cook hummed while chopping vegetables. Normal sounds. Normal life. But Leora stood in the Vampire King's bedroom, holding a phone message from someone who knew her surname, while the woman who raised her was probably a traitor, and bombs designed to trap immortals sat disabled throughout the house. Her shift ended in 14 hours. She had a feeling she wouldn't make it that long. The game, whatever game this was, had already begun. And she'd just saved the life of the one person both sides wanted dead. The 9th bomb sat behind the portrait of Kaylin's grandmother in the second-floor gallery, its violet pulse reflected in the dead woman's painted eyes. Leora stood on a footstool while Kaylin held the frame steady, their fingers nearly touching on the gilded edge. The casing is triple-sealed, she murmured, studying the device's construction with an intensity that made him watch her instead of the bomb. Military grade. Whoever built this new vampire physiology, the UV spectrum is calibrated specifically for your kind. Too narrow for human damage, too precise for commercial equipment. How do you know that? Her hands paused. Mrs. Ashwood used to let me read the books in your library. The restricted section. I thought she was being kind. She twisted the casing counterclockwise, her movements confident despite the tremor in her voice. Now I'm not sure what she was doing. The device came apart in 3 pieces. Leora examined each component with the careful attention she usually reserved for mending lace. This isn't just a trigger mechanism. Look, there's a secondary transmitter. These bombs are networked. Kaylin leaned closer, his chest nearly touching her shoulder. She smelled like lemon oil and something warmer, distinctly human. Meaning they weren't designed to detonate. They were designed to activate in sequence, creating a UV corridor. Hurting you. She met his eyes, hers dark with understanding. Someone wanted you alive, moving in a specific direction. Toward what? Before he could answer, gravel crunched in the drive. Cook's wagon, right on schedule. Then Thomas the groundskeeper's whistle, cheerful and oblivious. The normal world arriving at the doorstep of a trap. I need to evacuate the staff, Kaylin said, already moving toward the stairs. Leora jumped down from the footstool, landing with practiced silence. And tell them what? That assassins rigged the manor? They'll panic. Ask questions. Better panic than dead. Or you tell them there's a gas leak. That the furnace needs emergency repairs. Give them the day off with pay. She was already thinking 3 steps ahead, her mind working through scenarios like she'd done this before. They'll be grateful, not suspicious. He stopped at the top of the stairs, studying her. You're very good at deception. I'm very good at surviving. No apology in her voice. Someone has to be. Kaylin gathered the staff in the kitchen, delivering the gas leak story with aristocratic authority that brooked no argument. Cook clucked about the inconvenience. Thomas offered to help with repairs. Mrs. Ashwood watched with eyes that calculated and measured and knew too much. All of you, go, Kaylin commanded. I'll handle the contractors myself. And Miss Leora? Mrs. Ashwood's voice was silk over steel. Surely she should leave as well? Miss Vale will assist me with inventory during the repairs. Kaylin's tone left no room for debate. The rest of you out. They filed through the servants' entrance, Mrs. Ashwood lingering at the threshold. "Do be careful, Leora," she said softly. "Old houses can be dangerous when you disturb their foundations." The door closed. Silence settled like dust. "She knows," Leora whispered. "Yes." Kaylin watched through the window until the last wagon disappeared down the drive. "But she can't act while we're both alive and aware. We have hours. Maybe less." They worked through the manor room by room, Leora's knowledge of the house's architecture guiding them to each hidden device. She moved through spaces she'd cleaned 1,000 times, now seeing them as a three-dimensional puzzle, a maze designed to trap something immortal. The final bomb waited in Kaylin's private chambers, mounted inside the ornate clock above his bed. Leora had wound that clock every week for 3 years, standing on this same chair, never knowing what hid behind its face. Her fingers found the mechanism by touch. "This one's different. It's not UV." She pried open the back panel, and her breath caught. "It's a containment field generator. Silver particle matrix, designed to create a cage." "A cage for what?" "For you." She looked down at him, her expression stricken. "These people didn't want you dead, Kaylin. They wanted you helpless. Trapped." And then she stopped, understanding blooming across her face. "The blood court. It's in 5 days. If you didn't show up, if you couldn't show up because you were imprisoned, House Corvain wins by default." Kaylin's voice went cold. "My territories, my people, everything I've built for 2 centuries gone." Leora climbed down slowly, the disabled device cradled in her hands like something fragile. She stood close enough that he could feel warmth radiating from her skin, close enough that the height difference put her eyes level with his throat. "What happens to your human territories when Corvain takes over?" "Nothing good." He took the device from her, setting it aside. "Corvain believes humans exist to serve, to feed, to die when convenient." Her jaw set. "Then we don't let him win. I'm not leaving." She lifted her chin, defiant. "This is my home. These people, the staff, the villagers under your protection, they're my family. If someone's trying to take that away, I'm going to stop them." Kaylin studied her face, seeing past the maid's uniform and practiced invisibility to something harder underneath. Something that knew how to dismantle military-grade weapons, that read restricted books and remembered what light could do to monsters. "You're not just a maid, are you, Leora Vale?" "I don't know what I am." Her honesty cut like glass. "But I know I won't let them hurt you." Outside, church bells marked the hour. Dawn had fully broken. Somewhere in the village, Mrs. Ashwood was reporting back to whoever had sent her. Somewhere in the darkness, House Corvain was recalculating. And in Kaylin Draven's private chambers, a maid who knew too much and a vampire king who trusted too little stood surrounded by the dismantled pieces of a trap, neither quite ready to acknowledge what was building between them. The game had moved to its second phase. They had 5 days to survive it. The library fire cast dancing shadows across familiar faces turned strange. Leora stood in the corner by the genealogy shelves, watching Kaylin question the people who'd raised her, taught her to read, shown her how to fold hospital corners and brew proper tea. Now each of them sat in the leather chair opposite his desk like suspects in a crime they couldn't name. Cook went first, wringing her apron between flour-dusted hands. "I locked the kitchen door myself, Master Draven. Same as always, 9 o'clock sharp. Checked it twice like I've been doing for 30 years. And the coal chute? Bolted from inside. I saw to it personal." Kaylin's voice remained gentle, but Leora heard the steel underneath. "Did you notice anyone unfamiliar in the village? Anyone asking questions about the manor's routines?" Cook shook her head, then hesitated. "Well, there was a man at market last week. Asked which days we received deliveries. I thought he was from the grain supplier, looking to adjust his schedule." "What did he look like?" "Ordinary. Brown hair, brown coat. Nothing remarkable." Cook's face crumpled. "Oh God, did I let them in? Did I?" "You did nothing wrong." Kaylin dismissed her with kindness that made Leora's chest ache. This was the master the servants never saw, patient, protective, bearing the weight of their guilt so they wouldn't have to. Thomas came next, then the scullery maid, then old Peter who tended the horses. Each interview the same pattern: routine questions, routine answers, nothing remarkable, nothing useful. Until Mrs. Ashwood entered. She moved with her usual grace, black dress immaculate, silver hair pinned in its customary knot. She'd looked exactly like this when she found 6-year-old Leora sleeping in the stables, had looked exactly like this when she taught Leora to curtsy, to serve, to disappear into the background of wealthy people's lives. Eleanor. Kaylin used her first name, a familiarity that surprised Leora. How long have you served this house? 23 years, Master Draven. Since before Miss Leora was born. Mrs. Ashwood's hands remained folded in her lap, perfectly still. Too still. And in those 23 years, have you ever known the servants' entrance to be compromised? Never. Yet someone entered. Someone who knew our routines, our blind spots, exactly when the night guards changed shifts. Kaylin leaned forward. Someone with intimate knowledge of this household. Perhaps they observed from outside. Watched our patterns. Mrs. Ashwood's voice never wavered. Criminal elements can be quite patient. Leora's stomach twisted. She'd heard that tone before, when Mrs. Ashwood lied to cook about who'd broken the good china, when she covered for Thomas after he came to work drunk, when she told the vicar that Master Draven was simply indisposed, rather than unable to attend day services. Mrs. Ashwood lied with the smooth ease of long practice. Kaylin dismissed her with the others, but his eyes found Leora's across the room. A silent question. She waited until the last servant left, until the library door clicked shut and the fire settled into embers. Then she crossed his desk, her heart hammering against her ribs. Eleanor Ashwood is lying. You're certain? She said the night guards changed shifts. But there were no guards last night. You sent them to escort the tax collector to the southern border. She shouldn't have known about shift changes that didn't happen. Leora's voice shook. And she's the only one with keys to every entrance, including the coal chute I used this morning. Kaylin's expression went dark. The woman who raised you. Yes. The word tasted like ash. He stood, moving toward the door, but Leora caught his arm. Let me hide. Please. I need to hear why. She slipped behind the tapestry depicting the Battle of Thornhaven, the one with the loose backing that she'd hidden behind as a child during hide-and-seek. The fabric smelled like dust and old wool and memory. Kaylin's voice carried through the library. Eleanor. Come back, please. Footsteps. The door closing. Then silence heavy enough to suffocate. You know, Mrs. Ashwood said finally. I know someone betrayed me. Someone I trusted. Kaylin's words fell like stones. Tell me it wasn't you, Eleanor. Tell me I'm wrong. I wish I could. Her voice cracked, the first genuine emotion Leora had ever heard from her. Lord Corvain has my daughter. My real daughter, the one I had before I came here. She's been in his dungeons for 23 years. Leora pressed her hand against her mouth to keep from making a sound. He told me if I served him, she'd live. If I refused, he'd send me pieces of her until there was nothing left. Mrs. Ashwood's breath hitched. So I served. I watched. I reported. And when he asked me to let his people inside, I opened the doors. You could have told me. I would have helped. You can't fight House Corvain. No one can. They're too old, too powerful, too many. A pause. But I didn't know they'd try to trap you. I swear, Kaylin. I thought they'd make it quick. I thought. She laughed bitterly. I thought if I cooperated, my daughter might finally die and end her suffering. Behind the tapestry, Leora felt her world tilting sideways. And Leora? Kaylin's voice went soft. Dangerous. What was she? The silence stretched so long Leora thought she might scream. Insurance, Mrs. Ashwood whispered. Corvain told me to find a child. A specific bloodline. Raise her here, in your household, where she'd be useful when the time came. What bloodline? Vale. The vampire hunters. Mrs. Ashwood's voice broke. He wanted someone close to you who could kill you if the trap failed. Someone you'd never suspect. A weapon disguised as a maid. The library spun. Leora gripped the wall behind the tapestry, her knees threatening to give out. Leora doesn't know, Mrs. Ashwood added quickly. I made sure of it. Raised her gentle, obedient, harmless. Whatever Corvain planned, it won't work. She's not a hunter. She's just a girl. Just a girl who saved my life this morning. Because I raised her to care about this place. About you. A sob. That's the one good thing I did. I gave her a real home, even if it was built on lies. Footsteps. Kaylin's measured tread toward the door. Thomas. Peter. Take Mrs. Ashwood to the wine cellar. Lock her in the back chamber. She's not to leave or speak to anyone. Master Draven, please. Be grateful I don't give you to Corvain myself. His voice could have frozen blood. You'll remain there until I decide what mercy, if any, you deserve. Struggling. Mrs. Ashwood calling Leora's name once, desperate and broken, before the library door slammed shut. Leora stood behind the tapestry, lungs burning, mind screaming. Everything she knew, every memory, every kindness, every moment of belonging reframed itself as manipulation. She wasn't an orphan who'd been rescued. She was a weapon who'd been planted. The tapestry pulled back. Kaylin's face appeared, carved from marble and shadow. How much did you hear? All of it. Her voice sounded distant. Small. He stepped behind the tapestry with her, the space suddenly intimate and suffocating. Leora. I'm a Vale. A vampire hunter. She laughed, high and sharp. I've been dusting your books and making your bed and polishing your silver, and the whole time I was supposed to kill you. You didn't know. Does it matter? She looked up at him, eyes burning. My entire life is a lie. Everything I am, everything I thought I was, it's all part of someone else's plan. Kaylin caught her shoulders, gentle but firm. You saved my life. Twice. Whatever Corvain intended, whatever Eleanor tried to make you, you chose differently. Because I didn't know. Because I'm too ignorant and naive to be the weapon they needed. Tears spilled over, hot and humiliating. I'm not even good at being what they made me for. Good. He pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling the back of her head. Then be what you choose instead. Leora stood in the Vampire King's arms, breathing in cold cologne and impossibility, while her entire identity shattered and reformed into something she didn't recognize. Somewhere in the darkness, House Corvain was waiting. And they still thought she was a weapon. Maybe, she thought with sudden vicious clarity, she'd let them keep thinking that. Morning light filtered through the study's heavy curtains, falling just short of Kaylin's desk where maps lay spread like accusations. Leora stood across from him, still wearing yesterday's uniform, her eyes red-rimmed from a sleepless night spent questioning every memory she possessed. Kaylin traced a boundary line on the largest map with one pale finger. The Blood Court has governed vampire territories for 800 years. 8 houses, 8 seats, balance maintained through blood oaths and ancient law. He tapped a region shaded in deep blue. This is mine. 12,000 humans living in 6 villages, 3 market towns, 1 port city. They pay taxes. I provide protection. Protection from what? From vampires like Theron Corvain. His finger moved to an adjacent territory marked in crimson. House Corvain holds the eastern borderlands. Theron inherited the seat 40 years ago when his father was executed for feeding atrocities. Kaylin's voice went flat. The execution changed nothing. Theron believes humans exist to serve vampire appetites. Food. Labor. Amusement. Nothing more. Leora studied the map, seeing her world reduced to colored ink and boundary lines. The people in the village, they don't know you're vampire, do they? Some suspect. Most prefer not to ask questions. He pulled out another document, this one covered in elegant script and wax seals. Every 5 years, the Blood Court convenes. We review territorial disputes, renew trade agreements, address grievances. It's 3 days of political theater where ancient creatures pretend civilization. And if you don't attend? The court interprets absence as either weakness or death. Either way, my seat is declared vacant. My territories become available for claim. He met her eyes. Corvain has been positioning himself to take them for decades. If I don't appear in 5 days, he wins everything by default. Leora's mind raced through implications. The baker's daughter, who always saved her the burnt edges of bread because she knew Leora liked them crispy. Old Willem at the tavern who'd taught her to play chess on slow winter evenings. The seamstress who'd mended Leora's only good dress for free when she tore it climbing trees as a child. What happens to them? To the villagers? Kaelin's silence was answer enough. Tell me. Corvain harvests. The word landed like a blade. He doesn't maintain the pretense of normalcy I do. His territories are farms. Humans are livestock. He bleeds them systematically, not enough to kill quickly, but enough to keep them weak, compliant, useful. He turned away from the map. Children born under Corvain's rule rarely live past 30. Leora's stomach churned. She thought of the children in the village, the ones who ran through the market square playing tag, who brought her wildflowers and asked her to braid their hair. You have to go. You have to fight him. It's not that simple. The court has rules. I can't simply accuse Corvain of attempted assassination without proof. Without evidence, I look paranoid. Weak. He pulled out a ledger filled with numbers. Someone is funding Corvain's operation. The UV bombs, the infiltration team, the inside intelligence. That costs money. Significant money. I need to know who's backing him before I walk into the blood court. What do you need from me? Kaelin studied her for a long moment. Nothing. Leora, you don't owe me anything. Whatever Eleanor intended, whatever the Vale bloodline means, you didn't choose any of it. He reached into his desk drawer, withdrew a leather purse that clinked with the weight of coins. I'm releasing you from service. This is enough to start over anywhere you choose. New name, new life, safe from Corvain and his plans. Leora looked at the purse like it was a snake. You're sending me away. I'm setting you free. To go where? Her voice rose. I've never left this valley. Everyone I know lives in your territory. The village, the manor, the servants. This is my entire world. She stepped closer to the desk, planting her palms on the map. You think I can just run away while Corvain turns them into cattle? I think you deserve a choice that isn't built on someone else's manipulation. Then let me choose this. She held his gaze. Let me choose to stay and help you fight. You're not a soldier, Leora. No. I'm something better. She straightened, feeling something crystallize inside her. I'm someone Corvain doesn't know about. Someone he thinks is still his weapon, still under Eleanor's control. I'm invisible. The word used to taste like poison. Now it tasted like power. And invisible people can go anywhere, hear anything, learn everything. Kaelin's expression shifted, calculation replacing concern. You want to spy. I want to protect my home. She pushed the coin purse back toward him. You said you need proof of who's funding Corvain. You need someone who can move through spaces you can't, talk to people who'd never trust a vampire lord. Her hands steadied. You need someone the enemy thinks is on their side. It's dangerous. If Corvain discovers you're working against him, he already thinks I'm his. Eleanor raised me to be his weapon. Leora smiled without humor. Let's let him keep believing that. Right up until it's too late. Kaelin walked around the desk slowly, stopping just in front of her. This close, she could see flecks of darker gray in his eyes, like storm clouds gathering. Why? Why risk yourself for people who've never known what you've sacrificed? Because Eleanor was wrong about one thing. Leora's voice didn't shake. She thought she made me harmless. But she also made me loyal. She gave me people to care about, a home to protect. That's not nothing. That's everything. She met his ancient gaze with her mortal one. I'm not running, Kaelin. This is my fight too. Something changed in his expression, the last wall between master and servant crumbling into dust. He saw her then, truly saw her, not as the help or as a weapon or as some political pawn, but as a person choosing her own path despite every reason to flee. Then we fight together. He offered his hand, not from above, but as an equal. Partners. Leora took it. His skin was cold, hers warm. The difference felt right somehow. Complementary. I'll need to know everything about the Blood Court, she said. Every house, every lord, every alliance and grudge. If I'm going to find Corvain's backer, I need to understand how your world works. Our world. He squeezed her hand once before releasing it. If you're doing this, you're not a servant anymore. You're my advisor. He paused, searching for words. Ally, Leora finished. Yes. He returned to the maps, but his posture had changed. No longer a lord instructing his maid, but a strategist consulting his partner. The Blood Court convenes in 5 days. Between now and then, we have work to do. Leora rolled up her sleeves, studying the territorial boundaries with new eyes. Somewhere in this web of ancient politics and vampire feuds was a thread that would lead to Corvain's benefactor. Somewhere in the shadows was evidence that could save 12,000 human lives. And somewhere deep inside herself, Leora Vale discovered she wasn't just a weapon someone else had forged. She was a blade that had chosen its own wielder. The manor's underground archives smelled like centuries, old paper, leather bindings, and stone that had never seen sunlight. Leora worked by candlelight, surrounded by stacks of books Kaelin had pulled from the restricted section, the ones she'd read as a child without understanding their true purpose. The UV bomb schematics matched a diagram in Modern Threats to Vampire Security, published 1887. Shadow Guild Technology, she read aloud, tracing the technical drawings. Human extremists believing vampires are abominations requiring extermination by any means necessary. The organization had cells throughout Europe, funded by old money families who'd lost loved ones to vampire attacks. She flipped pages, looking for more recent information. The Shadow Guild had supposedly disbanded in 1923 after their leadership was executed, but the book noted rumors of splinter groups continuing the work underground. Someone had revived them. Someone with money and motivation. Leora reached for another volume, this one older, its leather cover cracked with age. Bloodlines of the Hunt, A History of Vampire Slayers, 1200 to 1800. She opened it randomly, and a name caught her eye. Vale. Her breath stopped. The entries spanned 4 pages. The Vale family, legendary hunters who'd stalked vampires for 6 generations. They developed specialized weapons, tactical strategies, tracking methods that made them the most feared vampire killers in history. The last confirmed Vale died in 1804, a woman named Catherine who'd killed 17 vampires before disappearing without a trace. Leora's hands shook as she turned pages. Portraits of her ancestors stared back, sharp-eyed men and women who looked nothing like her but shared her surname. Her blood. She didn't just know, Leora whispered. Eleanor specifically found me because of this. She pulled out more books, desperate now. Combat manuals written by Valas, journals describing hunts, anatomical studies of vampire physiology annotated in familiar handwriting, her family's handwriting. A small book tumbled from the stack, landing open at her feet. A genealogy. She picked it up with numb fingers, scanning names and dates until she found it. Catherine Vale, married to William Ashwood in 1803. One daughter, Elizabeth. The line continued downward through generations until Leora Catherine Vale, born 1801, bloodline status, unknown. The year was wrong. Everything was wrong. But there, in faded ink, was her name. You weren't supposed to find that. She spun. Kaelin stood in the archive doorway, shadows pooling around him. You knew. Her voice came out raw. The whole time. You knew my name, knew what it meant, and you said nothing. Yes. Why? She held up the genealogy, the evidence of her heritage. Why hire me? Why keep me close when my entire bloodline existed to kill yours? Kaelin descended the stairs slowly. Because you were 6 years old, sleeping in my stables, wearing a dress 3 sizes too small. Because when I asked your name, you whispered it like you were afraid I'd hit you for speaking. He stopped 3 feet away. Because you were a child who needed help, and I didn't care what your surname was. You should have told me. Perhaps. But I watched you grow up here, watched you become kind and gentle and everything your ancestors weren't. His voice softened. I didn't want you to carry their legacy. Their violence. I wanted you to be free of it. That wasn't your choice to make. Leora threw the book down. First Eleanor, now you, everyone deciding who I should be, what I should know, how much truth I can handle. I'm not a child anymore, Kaylin. I'm not some fragile thing that needs protecting from reality. I know that now. Do you? She laughed bitterly. Or are you still seeing that 6-year-old in the stables? Still thinking I need saving? His jaw tightened. I'm seeing the woman who saved my life. Who's risking everything to fight beside me. But I'm also seeing, he gestured at the books surrounding them. Someone discovering they're descended from people who would have killed me on sight. Forgive me for wondering if that changes things. The words hit like a slap. You think I'd hurt you? I think you're learning you come from hunters. That it's in your blood, your heritage, possibly your instincts. He held her gaze. I think you have every right to be angry at what my kind has done to humans throughout history. And I think, his voice dropped. I think I'm terrified of losing you to that anger. Leora stared at him, seeing vulnerability she'd never witnessed before. The Vampire King afraid. Of her. She looked down at the books scattered at her feet. Combat manuals. Tracking guides. Anatomical studies showing exactly where to strike to kill efficiently. Her heritage. Her birthright. I need to be alone, she said quietly. Kaylin nodded and left without another word. Leora sank to the floor, surrounded by her family's legacy, and began to read. The Shadow Guild operated from a warehouse near the docks, disguised as a fish processing plant. Leora approached at midnight, the address copied from a note she'd found tucked inside one of the Veil combat manuals. Someone had been leaving her breadcrumbs. Someone wanted her to find this place. She knocked 3 times, then twice, the pattern described in her great-grandfather's journal. The door opened. A woman with a crossbow studied her face. Who sent you? No one sent me. I'm Leora Vale. She lifted her chin. I'm done hiding what I am. The woman's eyes widened. She lowered the crossbow. Holy God. We thought the bloodline was extinct. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into an armory. Weapons lined the walls, crossbows, silver-tipped stakes, UV grenades. 20 people worked at various stations, assembling, testing, preparing for war. They all stopped when Leora entered. A man in his 50s approached, his face weathered but his eyes sharp. Leora Vale. You have your mother's face. He offered his hand. Garrett Cross. I knew your parents before they died. Her heart stuttered. You knew them. Brilliant hunters, both of them. Your father could track a vampire through 3 cities. Your mother could kill one with her bare hands if necessary. His expression darkened. Eleanor Ashwood murdered them when you were 6 months old. They refused to let her raise you as a weapon, so she eliminated them and took you anyway. The warehouse tilted. Leora grabbed a workbench for support. She killed my parents. And raised you in that monster's house. Cross's voice filled with contempt. But you're here now. That means you've awakened. You understand what you are. Leora forced herself to nod. I found the archives. The books. Everything my family did. Everything your family died for. Cross gestured around the warehouse. We're finishing their work. Tomorrow night, the Blood Court convenes. 8 vampire lords in one room. We end them all at once. He led her to a table covered in schematics. The cathedral layout, marked with entry points and kill zones. UV emitters positioned to create an inescapable trap. Silver gas canisters designed to weaken vampires before the final strike. We've been planning this for 3 years, Cross explained. But we lacked one thing, someone inside Draven's household who could confirm his attendance, ensure he doesn't suspect. He smiled. Then we received word you'd finally discovered your heritage. Perfect timing. Leora studied the plans, memorizing every detail while keeping her face neutral. How many vampires will be there? 8 lords, maybe 30 guards total. We'll kill them all. Cross pulled out a silver dagger, ornate and ancient. This was your mother's. I've kept it for you. He pressed it into her hands. I want you to have the honor of killing Draven, your family's greatest enemy, ended by their last descendant. Poetic. The dagger felt heavy. Wrong. Leora closed her fingers around it anyway. Why Draven specifically? Because he's the strongest. The most dangerous. The one who's convinced humans he's civilized. Cross's face twisted with disgust. He's a monster pretending to be a gentleman. Your mother spent years trying to get close enough to end him. Now you'll finish what she started. Leora thought of Kaelin pulling her from the stables, hiring her despite her name, teaching her to read in his library. Kaelin trusting her with his life, seeing her as an equal, choosing her as his ally. When do we strike? She asked. Tomorrow at midnight. The ceremony begins at 11. By 12:15, every vampire in that cathedral will be dead. Cross gripped her shoulder. Your parents would be proud, Leora. You're finally becoming what you were meant to be. A younger man approached, maybe 25, studying Leora with suspicious eyes. She works for Draven. Lives in his house. How do we know this isn't a trap? Because she's a Veil, Cross said firmly. So was Catherine, and she married a human sympathizer. Bloodline doesn't guarantee loyalty. The man stepped closer to Leora. Tell me, when you look at Draven, what do you see? Leora met his gaze. A vampire. And you want him dead? She thought of Kaelin's gray eyes, his cold hands, his confession that he was terrified of losing her. She thought of 12,000 humans who would become cattle if he died. Yes, she lied. The man didn't blink. Then prove it. There's a vampire feeding 3 blocks from here. Unauthorized kill, endangering the operation. Go stake it. Now. Bring me its fangs as proof. Leora's stomach dropped, but she forced a smile. Show me where. She followed him into the night, the silver dagger heavy in her pocket, knowing she had minutes to escape before they discovered what she really was. Not a hunter. A traitor to her own blood. Leora found Kaelin on the manor's highest roof, standing at the stone balustrade where gargoyles watched the sleeping valley. Dawn was still hours away, but he stood facing east as if willing the sun to stay buried beneath the horizon. I escaped, she said, climbing through the dormer window. Barely. One of them didn't trust me. Wanted proof I'd kill. He turned, and the moonlight carved his face into marble. Are you hurt? No. I ran. Let them think I was frightened, overwhelmed. She crossed to stand beside him, her breath fogging in the cold air while his remained absent. Kaelin, they're planning a massacre. Tomorrow night at the Blood Court. UV emitters, silver gas, coordinated strike teams. They mean to kill every vampire lord in the cathedral. His hands tightened on the balustrade. Then I cancel. Send word that I'm withdrawing from the court, that territorial disputes can wait. And hand Corvain everything he wants? Leora grabbed his arm. Your people, our people, become his cattle. You said yourself what happens under his rule. Better that than walking into a slaughter. It doesn't have to be a slaughter. We know their plan now. We know exactly where they'll position, when they'll strike, what weapons they're using. She pulled the cathedral schematics from her pocket, stolen during her escape. We can turn this around. Kaelin studied the plans, his expression unreadable. How many hunters? 20 confirmed. Maybe more. She pointed to marked positions. UV emitters here, here, and here. Silver gas canisters at the main exits. They expect panic, chaos. Vampires fleeing into the traps. So we don't flee. We fortify. His mind was already working through tactics. Warn the other lords beforehand. Position guards at the emission points. Have countermeasures ready for the silver gas. They'll suspect betrayal. One of the hunters will talk under interrogation, reveal there was an informant. Leora met his eyes. They'll know it was me. They'll know a veil helped you. Then you don't come to the blood court. You stay here, safe, and I'll... Stop. Her voice cut like glass. Stop deciding what I can handle. Stop protecting me from my own choices. You're asking me to watch you walk into danger. I'm asking you to trust me as your ally, not shelter me as your servant. She stepped closer, anger and something deeper burning in her chest. You said we were partners. Was that a lie? No. The word came out rough. But partnership doesn't mean I stop caring if you live or die. Caring. She laughed bitterly. You hired me because I was a child who needed help. You kept my heritage secret because you didn't want me to carry violence. Everything you've done has been about protecting poor, fragile Leora from the terrible truth. Her voice cracked. When do I get to be strong? When do I get to choose danger instead of having safety chosen for me? You want to know why I really hired you? Kaylin's control shattered. Yes, you were a child who needed help. But that's not why I kept you. I kept you because when you looked at me, you didn't see a monster. You saw a person. You saw me. He gripped the balustrade hard enough that stone cracked beneath his fingers. Do you know how rare that is? How intoxicating. To be seen as something other than a predator for once. Leora's breath caught. I kept you close because you made me feel human, he continued, voice dropping to something raw and honest. Because you asked questions about my books, because you hummed while you worked, because you existed in my house like it was a home and not a tomb. He turned to face her fully. I didn't tell you about your heritage because I was selfish. Because I wanted to keep you exactly as you were, someone who could look at me without fear or calculation. Someone who made me forget what I am. The words hung between them, devastating in their vulnerability. You want to know the truth? Leora's voice shook. You're the first person who ever looked at me like I mattered. Not as a servant, not as a charity case, not as a weapon. Just as me. Tears burned her eyes. Eleanor raised me to be invisible. You made me visible. You made me feel like my thoughts, my observations, my choices had value. They do. You do. Then trust me to fight. She moved closer, close enough to feel the cold radiating from his skin. Trust me to stand beside you tomorrow night. Trust me to be more than someone you need to protect. Kaylin's hand came up slowly, cupping her face with careful reverence. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and Leora's breath stuttered at the intimate touch. I'm terrified, he whispered. Terrified of losing you. Terrified that your hunter blood will wake up, and you'll see me for what I truly am. Terrified that I've been selfish, keeping you close when you deserve so much more than a vampire's obsession. Leora leaned into his palm, letting herself feel the cold, the difference, the impossible space between human and monster. What if I don't want more? What if this, she covered his hand with hers, is exactly what I choose? He leaned down, and she rose on her toes, and the space between them collapsed to nothing. His lips hovered a breath from hers, cold and close and careful. Then Leora pulled back. I can't, she whispered, hating herself. Not yet. Not until I know who I really am. Kaylin's hand fell away. Hunter or ally? Human or veil? She touched her chest, feeling her heart hammer. Tomorrow night, I'll walk into that cathedral carrying my mother's dagger. The Shadow Guild will offer me the chance to kill you. And I need to know, when that moment comes, what I'll choose. She met his eyes. I need to know it's me choosing, not fate or blood or heritage. Me. Understanding flickered across his face. Pain. But also respect. Then we plan, he said quietly. Together. We turn their trap into ours. And tomorrow night, he touched her face once more, the gesture achingly gentle. You'll make your choice. And I'll accept whatever it is. They stood on the roof as false dawn lightened the eastern sky, two people from opposite worlds planning to survive the night that would define them both. The blood court convened in 18 hours. Leora had 18 hours to decide who she was. And who she'd die to protect. The Grand Cathedral had been beautiful once, before vampires claimed it for their politics. Now gargoyles leered from vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows depicted blood oaths instead of saints, and the altar held 8 thrones arranged in a circle, ancient wood-stained dark with centuries of ceremony. Leora stood 2 steps behind Kaelin's throne, wearing a dark dress borrowed from the manor's formal collection. Every vampire in the cathedral could smell her humanity, warm blood, beating heart, mortality wrapped in silk. She felt their attention like insects crawling across her skin. "This is unprecedented," Lord Ashton hissed from the 3rd throne, his voice carrying through the cavernous space. "A human attending blood court? Draven, have you lost your mind? Miss Vale serves as my advisor." Kaelin's voice remained calm, but Leora heard steel underneath. "She has proven herself invaluable to my house's security." "An advisor?" Lady Morgana laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "How progressive. Next you'll be asking us to grant humans voting rights." The other lords muttered agreement, but their eyes kept returning to Leora. Calculating. Hungry. She forced herself to stand straight, to meet their ancient gazes without flinching. The cathedral doors opened with a boom that echoed like thunder. House Corvain entered, Lord Theron at the center, flanked by 24 guards in crimson livery. He moved with the fluid grace of something that had been dead for centuries, his face beautiful in the way poisonous flowers are beautiful. His eyes found Leora immediately. He smiled. "Brother Draven." Theron's voice stripped false warmth as he took his throne. "I see you've brought entertainment." "How thoughtful." "Miss Vale is my advisor, not entertainment." Kaelin's hand rested on the throne's arm, knuckles white with tension. "Advisor." Theron tasted the word like wine. "How extraordinary." "Tell me, Miss Vale, do you advise Lord Draven on all matters? Or just those concerning human livestock?" Leora felt every vampire's attention sharpen. This was a test. "I advise Lord Draven on matters of security and territorial management," she said clearly. "The humans under his protection live as citizens, not livestock. Perhaps you're unfamiliar with the distinction." Several lords sucked in unnecessary breaths. No one spoke to House Corvain that way. Theron's smile widened. "Spirit. I appreciate that. But tell me, what's your surname, little advisor?" Ice slid down Leora's spine. "Answer him," Lady Morgana commanded. "The Blood Court demands transparency." Leora lifted her chin. "Vale. My name is Leora Vale." The cathedral erupted. Vampires rose from their thrones, voices overlapping in accusation and disbelief. "Vale, the hunter bloodline, Draven's brought a weapon among us, treachery." Silence. Kaelin's voice cut through the chaos with the authority of someone who'd commanded armies. The court settled, but fury simmered beneath the surface. "Yes, Miss Vale is descended from vampire hunters. She is also the woman who saved my life and uncovered a conspiracy against this court." "A conspiracy?" Theron leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Do tell." "Someone planted UV bombs throughout my estate. Military-grade weapons designed to trap, not kill." Kaelin's gaze swept the assembled lords. "Someone wanted me captured. Unable to attend this gathering. My territories left vacant for claim." "And you believe this, human, saved you?" Lord Ashton's voice stripped skepticism. "How convenient. A Vale, playing hero. Forgive me if I find that difficult to believe." "I find it impossible to believe," Theron said smoothly. "The Vale bloodline exists for one purpose, killing our kind. Yet we're expected to accept that this descendant has suddenly developed a conscience." He rose from his throne, moving toward Leora with predatory grace. "Or perhaps she's simply waiting for the perfect moment to strike." Kaelin moved to intercept, but Leora stepped forward first. "If I wanted Lord Draven dead, he'd be dead. I've had 3 years of opportunities. I've been in his private chambers, handled his weapons, prepared his wine." She met Theron's eyes without flinching. "If I were my ancestors, he would have died 1,000 times over. But you're not like them, are you?" Theron circled her slowly, too close, invading her space deliberately. "You're domesticated. A hunting dog who's forgotten how to bite." I haven't forgotten anything. Leora's voice went cold. I've simply chosen who deserves my teeth. Theron laughed, delighted. Magnificent. Draven, wherever did you find her? He turned back to the assembled court. I move that we execute Miss Vale immediately. The risk of harboring a hunter descendant is unacceptable. Seconded, Lady Morgana said quickly. I oppose. Kaelin's voice rang out. Miss Vale has proven her loyalty through action. She's entitled to the same rights as any human under my protection. Your protection doesn't extend to Blood Court. Lord Ashton stood, adjusting his robes. This is vampire law. Human sympathies are irrelevant. The motion stands. We vote on immediate execution. Leora's hand moved instinctively to her pocket, where her mother's silver dagger waited. She could feel the Shadow Guild positioning outside, waiting for midnight, for chaos. She could feel her hunter heritage singing in her blood, 300 years of instinct screaming at her to act. Wait. Another voice cut through the tension. Lord Wilhelm, eldest of the 8 houses, rose slowly from his throne. There is precedent. Ancient precedent. He moved to the altar, pulling out a leather-bound tome thick with age. The position of King's Keeper. A human of proven strength and loyalty serving as advisor and protector to a vampire lord. That custom is centuries dead, Theron snapped. Dead customs can be revived. Wilhelm opened the tome, his ancient hands careful on the pages. If Miss Vale wishes to claim this position, she must undergo a trial. Prove her loyalty before the assembled court. If she succeeds, she gains legal protection. If she fails, he looked at Leora with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall. She dies here. Tonight. The cathedral fell silent. Leora felt Kaelin's gaze on her, felt every vampire waiting for her response. What trial? She asked. Wilhelm smiled, showing fangs. That depends on who wants you dead most. Lord Corvain, as the one who moved for execution, you have the right to design her test. Theron's expression turned predatory. Triumphant. How generous. I accept. He looked at Leora like a cat looks at a wounded bird. My test is simple, Miss Vale. Survive what comes next. The cathedral's stained glass windows shattered inward. UV light flooded the sacred space. Silver gas canisters tumbled across ancient stone. The Shadow Guild had arrived early, and Leora stood at the center of a massacre, her mother's dagger burning in her pocket, while both sides of her heritage screamed for blood. Chaos swallowed the cathedral whole. Vampires screamed as UV light seared their flesh, their ancient bodies smoking where the beams caught them. Silver gas rolled across the floor like fog, and Leora heard crossbows firing, stakes punching through expensive suits into undead hearts. Garrett Cross stood framed in the broken window, backlit by moonlight. For humanity, he roared. And the monsters. The vampire lords scattered, some fleeing toward the crypts below, others rallying their guards for counterattack. Lady Morgana fell with a stake through her spine, her scream cutting off mid-breath. Lord Ashton's guards formed a protective circle, but the UV emitters were everywhere, methodically eliminating escape routes. Leora ran toward Kaelin, but iron-strong hands seized her from behind. Lord Theron dragged her backward through a side door into a vestry chamber, his grip bruising her arms. Let go. He slammed the door, cutting off the chaos outside. The small room was dark except for candles arranged in a circle, already lit. Waiting. This wasn't the guild acting alone, Leora gasped, struggling against his hold. You planned this. You brought them here. Of course I did. Theron threw her into the center of the candle circle. The Shadow Guild wants vampires dead. I want Draven's territories. We each get what we want. He pulled out a ceremonial knife, its blade inscribed with symbols that hurt to look at. But first, I need insurance. A weapon that can kill him if my hunters fail. I'll never. You will. Theron knelt beside her, grabbing her wrist. Your bloodline carries dormant abilities, Leora. Strength, speed, senses that can track vampires through walls. The Veil gift. He pressed the blade to her palm. It just needs awakening. He cut deep. Her blood welled up, dark and hot, and Theron began chanting in a language older than the cathedral's stones. The candles flared violet. Pain exploded through Leora's body, every nerve ending screaming, every cell remembering what her ancestors had been. Hunter. Killer. Weapon. Her spine arched. She felt her body changing, not physically but fundamentally. Her senses expanding until she could smell death itself, the absence of life that defined every vampire in the building. She could feel their positions, their weaknesses, the exact angle to strike to destroy them. 37 vampires still alive in the cathedral. Each one a target. Each one prey. Yes, Theron whispered. Feel it. Your true nature. Leora's hand shot out faster than human possible, grabbing his throat. She squeezed, felt his ancient bones creak. My true nature, she hissed, her voice strange in her own ears, is choosing who dies. She threw him across the room and ran, bursting back into the cathedral's chaos. Her new senses painted the battlefield in crystalline detail, every vampire, every hunter, every weapon and weakness and opportunity. Cross stood near the altar, directing his people. Focus fire on the eastern exit. Don't let them regroup. Leora could kill him in 3 moves. Could end the entire guild in under 2 minutes with this new speed, this clarity. Instead, she searched for gray eyes. For cold hands. For the vampire who'd seen her as human when her own blood screamed that she wasn't. She found Kalen fighting near his throne, 3 hunters converging on his position. Leora moved, and the world blurred. She appeared between Kalen and a crossbow bolt, catching it mid-flight. Her hand closed around the wooden shaft, splinters biting into her palm. Leora. His voice was wary, hopeful, terrified. She turned to face him, and her hunter instincts roared. Every nerve in her body screamed vampire, threat, prey, kill. She could see exactly where to strike. Could feel the ancient magic animating his dead flesh. Could sense the weakness at the base of his skull where one precise blow would end 2 centuries of existence. Her hand trembled, raising the crossbow bolt like a stake. I can feel it, she whispered. What you are. What I'm meant to do. Kalen didn't move. Didn't raise his hands to defend himself. I know. Every instinct is telling me to kill you. That you're dangerous. That you're wrong. That you're, her voice broke. Everything my blood says you are. Then do it. He stepped closer, offering his chest. If you need to kill me to be free of this, then do it. But it's your choice, Leora. Always your choice. Not your blood's. Not your ancestors. Yours. Tears blurred her vision. The crossbow bolt felt like fire in her hand. Behind her, the battle raged, hunters killing vampires, vampires killing hunters, centuries of hatred burning the cathedral to ash. And she stood at the center, caught between what she was born to be and what she'd chosen to become. I choose you, she whispered. The bolt clattered to the floor. Leora turned, her awakened senses locking onto the shadow guild with predatory focus. But I'm still a Veil. And right now, the people threatening my home aren't vampires. She moved like lightning, using hunter tactics against hunters. She knew their patterns, their training, their blind spots, knew them because they were hers too. She disarmed Cross in 2 moves, used his own UV emitter against 3 of his people, dismantled their formation with the precision of someone who understood exactly how they thought. Because she was one of them. And she'd chosen to fight them anyway. Kalen moved beside her, vampire strength and human cunning working in perfect synchronization. They fought back to back, Leora neutralizing weapons while Kalen subdued attackers with non-lethal precision. The gas canisters, Leora called, her enhanced senses tracking the silver spreading through the cathedral. If we can reverse the ventilation. Already on it. Kalen moved toward the altar's mechanism. Leora grabbed Cross by his collar, her new strength making him feel weightless. Call retreat. Now. Or I start breaking bones. He stared at her, betrayed. You're a Veil. This is your purpose. My purpose is whatever I choose it to be. She tightened her grip. And I choose to protect the people you're trying to slaughter. Cross whistled sharply. His remaining hunters fell back, dragging their wounded toward the shattered windows. This isn't over, he spat. You can't fight your blood forever. Watch me. The Shadow Guild vanished into the night, leaving behind smoke and blood and broken glass. The cathedral fell silent except for groaning vampires and the hiss of dissipating silver gas. Lord Theron emerged from the vestry, his expression somewhere between fury and admiration. Well, that was unexpected. Kaelin moved to stand beside Leora, close enough that she could feel cold radiating from him. Her hunter senses still screamed vampire threat prey, but beneath that was something stronger. Choice. The trial, Lord Wilhelm said, rising shakily from where he'd taken cover. Miss Vale has proven her loyalty. In defense of this court, despite her awakened heritage, she chose to protect rather than destroy. He looked at the assembled lords. I move that she be granted the position of King's Keeper to House Draven. Leora stood in the wreckage of the cathedral, her mother's dagger still undrawn, her hunter blood singing with power she'd never asked for, and waited for the vote that would define the rest of her life. 3 days after the cathedral attack, the Blood Court reconvened in a manner hastily converted for the purpose. The building still smelled like construction and fresh paint, but the 8 thrones had been salvaged and arranged in their traditional circle. 7 were occupied. House Corvain's throne sat empty, draped in black cloth. Leora stood in the center of the circle, wearing a formal dress that had belonged to Kaelin's grandmother. Her awakened senses painted the room in sharp detail, every vampire's position, every exit, every threat. But she kept her hands relaxed at her sides, her posture open. Non-threatening. Lord Wilhelm cleared his throat. We gather to address 2 matters. First, the conspiracy against this court. He gestured to the guards flanking Lord Theron, who stood in chains of consecrated silver. Lord Corvain, you are accused of treason, of funding human extremists, of orchestrating an attack that resulted in the death of Lady Morgana and 17 guards. I did what was necessary, Theron said, his voice still carrying aristocratic authority despite the chains. Draven has grown soft. Treats humans like equals. It's a disease that would have spread through all our territories. So you decided to cure it with massacre? Lord Ashton's voice dripped contempt. I decided to restore proper order. Theron's eyes found Leora. Though I admit, my weapon developed a conscience. Disappointing. Kaelin rose from his throne, his movement controlled, but his fury evident. You didn't just attack me. You attacked the foundation of the Blood Court. Our ability to govern. Our treaties with human territories. He pulled documents from his coat. Financial records recovered from the Shadow Guild stronghold. Every payment traced back to House Corvain accounts. Every weapon purchase, every bribe, every piece of intelligence, funded by you. Lord Wilhelm reviewed the documents with ancient eyes. The evidence is conclusive. Lord Theron Corvain, you are found guilty of treason against the Blood Court. Your sentence, imprisonment in the Blackstone Crypts for 1 century. Your house is dissolved. Your territories will be redistributed among the remaining houses. Theron laughed as the guards dragged him toward the exit. You think this changes anything? Humanity breeds faster than we can control them. The Veil Girl is just the beginning. Eventually, they'll remember how to fight back. And when they do, he looked at Kaelin. Your mercy will be what destroys you. The doors closed behind him. Silence settled over the court. Which brings us, Lord Wilhelm continued, to Miss Vale's position. She possesses an awakened hunter bloodline. She saved this court from annihilation. And she stands accused of nothing except choosing loyalty over heritage. He turned to Leora. How do we reconcile these facts? Lord Ashton stood. Ancient law provides an answer. The King's Keeper, a human of demonstrated power who serves as advisor and, if necessary, check against vampire excess. He looked uncomfortable admitting it. We need someone who can move between our world and theirs. Someone humans will trust. Someone with the strength to enforce balance. Someone who can kill us if we deserve it, Lady Seraphine added quietly. That was always the Keeper's true purpose. Not a servant. A safeguard. Lord Wilhelm nodded. Lord Draven, do you formally request that Miss Vale accept this position? Kalen descended from his throne, crossing to stand before Leora. He didn't touch her, not here, not in front of the court, but his gray eyes held everything they couldn't say aloud. Leora Vale, he said formally, I request you serve as King's Keeper to House Draven. To advise, to protect, to bridge the divide between human and vampire. To keep me honest. A ghost of a smile. To keep me humble. Leora met his gaze, feeling her hunter blood singing alongside her human heart. Two halves of herself, finally aligned. I accept. The oath was ancient, spoken in a language that predated the cathedral itself. Leora repeated the words, feeling them settle into her bones like a second awakening. When she finished, Lord Wilhelm produced a silver chain bearing the Keeper's seal, a hand clasping a crown, neither above nor below, but equal. Kalen fastened it around her neck, his cold fingers brushing her throat. Welcome home, he whispered, too quiet for vampire ears. 2 weeks later, Leora sat in Kalen's study wearing a formal jacket and her old yellow rubber gloves, polishing the silver inkwell she'd cleaned 1,000 times before. Kalen worked through territorial correspondence at his desk, occasionally glancing up with an expression caught between amusement and exasperation. You know you don't have to clean anymore, he said finally. I know. Leora buffed an imaginary smudge. But someone has to keep you humble. Can't have the King's Keeper letting you get a big head. My head is perfectly sized. Debatable. She set down the inkwell, removing the ridiculous gloves with theatrical slowness. How's the territorial redistribution going? Complicated. Half of Corvain's former lands want a petition for human self-governance. The other half are terrified of losing vampire protection. He rubbed his temples. Your thoughts? Gradual transition. Human councils with vampire advisors, not the reverse. Let them build their own systems while maintaining security agreements. She moved to look at the maps spread across his desk, her new position giving her the confidence to stand beside him rather than behind. We could pilot it in 3 towns, see what works. We. He smiled. I like the sound of that. You'd better. You're stuck with me now. Kalen stood, closing the distance between them. This close, her awakened senses painted him in perfect detail, ancient, dangerous, hers. Leora Vale. King's Keeper. Former maid. Current pain in my neck. That's your grace to you. She lifted her chin, fighting a smile. Forgive me, your grace. His hand curved around her waist, pulling her closer. How should I show proper respect? You could start by kissing me. He did. Cold lips against warm, dead and alive, monster and hunter. Leora melted into him, her hands tangling in his hair, 3 years of impossible longing finally given permission. When they broke apart, both breathing unnecessarily hard, she glanced at the study window. Their reflections stared back, Leora solid and real, her image clear in the glass. Beside her, empty space where Kalen stood, a void in the shape of a person. But his hand was solid in hers. His presence undeniable. The absence in the mirror didn't make him less real. It just made them perfectly balanced.